am so sorry for everything that has happened.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 horror movies of all time. For this list, we're looking at the world's most legendary and critically acclaimed horror movies. What do you make of these classics? Let us know in the comments below. Number 20, Suspiria. Dario Argento has always been known for his incredible sense of style. The story of Suspiria follows a ballet student named Susie Banyan, who finds herself in a very bizarre dance academy with supernatural undertones.
È la chiave che ci consente di sapere dove vanno le insegnanti ogni notte. L'ho scoperto ieri sera. Ho scritto tutto qui, accanto a te. Susie, tu sei niente.
But that's really just an excuse for Argento to do what he does best. This is arguably the greatest example of giallo horror, with a surreal atmosphere straight out of a nightmare and some startlingly beautiful images. In fact, nearly every frame of this movie is composed and colored to perfection by cinematographer Luciano Tovoli. Add in some eerie music from Goblin and Argento himself, and you have a movie that really bombards the senses.
Ma che volto avrò? Come vedrai, Elena Marcos.
Number 19, A Nightmare on Elm Street. There are slashers, and then there's A Nightmare on Elm Street. Wes Craven's film is now preserved in the National Film Registry, and for good reason. It's one of the most iconic movies ever made.
I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy.
While slashers were a dime a dozen at the time, Craven and his team of talented filmmakers reinvented the wheel. Freddy Krueger quickly became one of the most evocative villains in movie history, and is masterfully played by Robert Englund. The story also ingeniously moved the slicing and dicing into the dreamscape, allowing for some imaginative scenarios and an inescapable sense of doom. 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you, and he always will be.
It's real, Mama. Feel it. Give me that damn thing. It even has his name written in it. Fred Krueger.
Number 18, Saw. This franchise experienced diminishing returns, but there's no denying that the original Saw is an absolute classic. It's not only a well-written movie full of memorable characters and iconic twists, but it also helped revolutionize the horror genre.
Hello, Amanda. You don't know me, but I know you. I want to play a game.
Countless Saw clones were produced in order to capitalize on the torture trend it began, but none managed to capture the magic of James Wan's Little Movie That Could. While comparisons were made to Seven and other industrial crime movies of its ilk, Saw carved out its own identity through its unique concept and grotesque violence. It spawned one of the biggest franchises in horror history, and Jigsaw has firmly established himself as one of the genre's most recognizable faces.
Most people are so ungrateful to be alive.
Number 17, Frankenstein. Arguably the most famous horror movie ever made, Frankenstein has been thrilling moviegoers since the early 30s. Based on Mary Shelley's popular novel of the same name, Frankenstein is all about the dangers of playing God.
It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. In the name of God. Now I know what it feels like to be God.
Frankenstein's monster is undeniably one of the most popular movie characters of all time. What with the instantly recognizable makeup and the notable performance by Boris Karloff, the themes it presents are also timeless, as it asks questions regarding technological advancement and the nature of unbound curiosity. The movie also spawned one of the greatest sequels ever in Bride of Frankenstein.
To a new world of gods and monsters.
Basically, everything about it is historic. Number 16, Ring. Directed by Hideo Nakata, Ring is easily one of the most popular Japanese horror films. Spawning a very popular American remake, Ring is about a cursed videotape that kills its users within a week.
みんなもあの噂してたからさ。今日で1週間なの。
The movie contains an outstanding villain in Sadako Yamamura, who is the Japanese equivalent of Samara Morgan. Some of its visuals have also made their way into the horror canon, including the eerie tape itself, and the image of Sadako emerging from the television to attack Ryuji. Ring was so successful it helped popularize J-horror in the West, and influenced numerous other films in the genre, including The Grudge and Dark Water. The early 2000s J-horror craze is all thanks to Ring.
じゃあ俺が見終わったらここの電話が鳴るわけだ。
4人死んでるのよ。同じ日に。
だったらお祓いでもすればいい。
Number 15, The Innocents. Henry James's The Turn of the Screw is one of the greatest horror stories ever written, and it's been adapted countless times for the screen. Jack Clayton's attempt is undeniably the best.
I don't know what the children saw, but they used to follow Quentin, Miss Jessel, trailing along behind, hand in hand, whispering. There was too much whispering in this house, miss.
This is a masterfully constructed psychological horror movie with impeccable craft in every department. Clayton's direction is confident, and the screenplay, which was co-written by Truman Capote, is deep and ambiguous. Cinematographer Freddie Francis helps build an oppressive atmosphere through its haunting lighting, and the electronic sound design by Daphne Oram was revolutionary for the time. The Innocents proves that the movie isn't always worse than the book, even when the book is this darn good.
We must try to learn what it is these horrors want. Think, Mrs. Gross. The answer must lie in the past.
Number 14, Hereditary. Ari Aster made one of the greatest debuts in horror with Hereditary, and instantly established his reputation as a master of the genre. Heralded as one of the most disturbing movies of the decade, Hereditary follows a troubled family as they deal with grief and mental illness.
So full of disdain and resentment and always so annoyed. Well, now your sister is dead.
The story is rich in thematic material, and it twists and turns in many unexpected directions. The visuals are as deeply unsettling as they are gorgeously captured by cinematographer Paweł Pogorzelski. But the real star of the show is Toni Collette, who gives a commanding and harrowing performance as the tortured Annie Graham. The fact that she wasn't nominated for an Oscar is simply unforgivable.
Steve, please, I really need you to be open to this. Please, I promise. Both of you. Please, I need you to be open. Please.
Number 13, Night of the Living Dead. George A. Romero proved budget doesn't make a movie. With a minuscule amount of money, chocolate sauce for blood, and outfits bought from Goodwill, Romero crafted one of the most revolutionary horror films of all time.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
The first in his historic Dead franchise, Night portrays the outset of the zombie outbreak. The film earned an enormous amount of controversy for its content and on-screen violence, and some critics immediately dismissed it as another cheap B-movie. Today, the film is recognized not only for its craft, but also its historic context. By introducing the modern concept of zombies, Romero changed the very fabric of the horror genre, and his influence has transcended film and reverberated throughout pop culture.
We have some descriptions of the assassins. Eyewitnesses say they are ordinary-looking people. Some say they appear to be in a kind of trance.
Number 12, Rosemary's Baby. This is a perfect example of taking a good book and turning it into something extraordinary. Adapted from Ira Levin's novel, Rosemary's Baby tells the famous story of Rosemary Woodhouse, a young woman who starts to fear for the life of her unborn child.
Rocky. You're trying to get me to be his mother.
Aren't you his mother?
The movie is not just a great piece of horror, it is a fantastically constructed film. Nearly every aspect of its production has earned acclaim and awards recognition, including the writing and directing, Christoph Komeda's music, and the performances of Mia Farrow and Ruth Gordon, the latter of whom won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. It is an oppressive movie about the paranoia of pregnancy, and about being helpless in a world that takes advantage of you. Number 11, The Texas Chain Saw Massacre. The horror genre can be separated into before and after the Texas Chain Saw Massacre. Like many classic horror films, the movie initially received a lukewarm reception and earned enormous controversy for its seemingly immoral content, but time did not blunt this chainsaw. The movie is now praised for its technical filmmaking, which includes gritty cinematography from Daniel Pearl and a terrific sense of time and setting. Just feels dirty.
When I look, you boys don't want to go mess around the old house? Those things is dangerous. You're liable to get hurt.
Of course, it's also a history-making film. It helped popularize the slasher genre and introduce the iconic character Leatherface, who, in turn, influenced many other silent slashers like Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers. Needless to say, the genre was never the same after Tobe Hooper got his hands on it.
The events of that day were to lead to the discovery of one of the most bizarre crimes in the annals of American history: the Texas Chain Saw Massacre.
Number 10. Scream. Wes Craven appears for a second time on this list with Scream, which is easily one of the most groundbreaking slashers ever made.
You want to play psycho killer? Can I be the helpless victim? Okay, let's see. No, please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel.
By the mid-90s, the genre was dying. It was stuck in place, drowning in endless sequels and been there, done that villains. In came old Master Craven and new screenwriter Kevin Williamson. Scream was the defibrillator that brought the waning genre back to life. It featured Williamson's brilliantly constructed and hilarious script that dismantled the slasher while also paying loving tribute to it. It's also a highly entertaining film, featuring a stellar cast of memorable characters, some inventive kills, and one, well, technically two of the most iconic killers of the 90s.
If they'd watch Prom Night, they'd save time. There's a formula to it. A very simple formula. Everybody's a suspect.
Number 9. Get Out. Jordan Peele has established himself as the leading name in socially conscious horror, and Get Out confidently established his unique voice. Featuring Peele's Oscar-winning screenplay, Get Out speaks on many topical themes, including race relations in America.
I know what you're thinking.
What?
Come on, I get it. White family, black servants, it's a total cliche.
I wasn't going to take you there.
Well, you didn't have to, believe me.
It earned widespread acclaim for its seamless blending of horror, comedy, and social critique, and it features a highly original story involving weird in-laws and brain transplants. The movie is deep and smart enough that it could be studied in academia, but it's also highly entertaining with sharp bouts of humor and some exceptional performances, particularly from the Oscar-nominated Daniel Kaluuya. There's simply nothing else like it.
Do they know I'm black?
No. Should they?
Number 8. Halloween. Is there anything about Halloween that isn't iconic? The setting was enormously influential, bringing the slasher to suburban America. The music is fantastic, complete with one of the most famous themes in movie history. The cinematography was groundbreaking, featuring point-of-view shots and the use of smooth Steadicam.
It's really late. I gotta go.
Will you call me tomorrow?
Yeah, sure.
Promise?
Yeah.
The characters are memorable and unforgettable, including Dr. Loomis, Michael Myers, and one of the greatest final girls in horror, Laurie Strode. It introduced John Carpenter to the mainstream, and he would later craft other masterpieces like The Thing. Finally, it pioneered all the tropes that the slasher would eventually become famous for. No one had seen anything like Halloween, and it established the basic horror template that is still being copied today.
I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
Number 7. Jaws. Later in his career, Steven Spielberg would establish himself as a family-friendly director who wowed through warm comfort and an unbound imagination. Jaws is, well, it isn't very family-friendly to say the least.
Oh, 1,100 men went in the war. 316 men come out. The Sharks took the rest June the 29th, 1945.
A hungry shark terrorizes the beaches of Amity Island, and lots of people get eaten in very violent and horrific ways. The movie's style remains impeccable to this day, featuring the classic underwater point-of-view shots, John Williams' recognizable score, and a surprisingly realistic shark. Jaws birthed the summer blockbuster and established Spielberg as a young filmmaker of rare talent and ambition.
$10,000 for me by myself. For that you get the head, the tail, the whole damn thing.
Number 6. The Silence of the Lambs. When it comes to horror, it doesn't get much more prestigious than The Silence of the Lambs. This is a psychological film that had far higher ambitions than mere entertainment. The movie is out of this world good, and as of 2022, it is the latest and only one of 3 to earn the Big 5 Academy Awards: Best Picture, Director, Actor, Actress, and Screenplay.
A census taker once tried to test me. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
The story gets under the skin like nothing had before, portraying Hannibal Lecter as a fiercely intelligent and verbose villain rather than a silent stalker of teenagers. And speaking of Hannibal Lecter, he is undeniably one of the greatest villains in movie history, a legacy that's aided by stellar dialogue and a flawless performance from Anthony Hopkins.
Still wake up sometimes, don't you? You wake up in the dark and hear the screaming of the lamb.
Number 5, Alien. This movie sounds like a disaster. We can imagine the pitch meeting now. It's like Halloween, only set in space and featuring an alien instead of a serial killer. Every crappy B movie sounds like that. But it just goes to prove that great movies are made in the execution, not the idea.
How do we kill it, Ash? There's gotta be a way of killing it. How? How do we do it?
You can't.
Under the command of Ridley Scott, Alien was a triumph. It still looks amazing to this day, featuring some exquisite production design, a gorgeous art style, and a convincing alien creature courtesy of H.R. Giger. It's also a perfectly acted film, and it contains some of the most memorable sequences in the history of horror. Chestburster, anyone? Space-based horror does not get much better than this.
This is Ripley, last survivor of the Nostromo. Signing off.
Number 4, The Shining. There's just no going wrong with Stanley Kubrick. Adapted from Stephen King's classic novel, The Shining tells the story of the Torrance family, who find themselves isolated in a mountain hotel over the winter. Much of the drama is centered around Jack Torrance, who slowly descends into madness and eventually attempts to kill his wife and child.
Hi, Lloyd. A little slow tonight, isn't it?
Yes, it is, Mr. Torrance.
Jack Nicholson is typically sublime in the role, and convincingly depicts Jack's downward spiral. Kubrick is just as magical behind the camera, embodying his movie with tantalizing ambiguity, intriguing themes, and some outstanding camera work. The Shining is an icon of pop culture, and one of the most famous horror movies ever made. A perfect marriage of mainstream appeal and artful filmmaking.
But you are the caretaker. You've always been the caretaker.
Number 3, Dracula. The first sound film adapted from Bram Stoker's novel, Dracula is also the best, or at least the most famous. The film is terrifically directed by Todd Browning, and Bela Lugosi crafted one of the most celebrated villains in movie history.
Aren't you drinking? I never drink. Why?
His performance is nothing short of legendary, and he created the archetypal vampire that would be copied for years, even decades to come. The legacy of Dracula simply cannot be overstated. It had a profound impact not only on the history of film, but on Western pop culture. Everyone knows Dracula, both the movie and Lugosi's portrayal of its titular monster. Like a vampire itself, the movie lives on, and it may never fade from the cultural conversation.
To die. To be really dead. That must be glorious.
Number 2, The Exorcist. This is perhaps the greatest example of a movie undergoing a critical reevaluation. The content was extraordinarily controversial at the time, and the film received a mixed critical reception. And then, slowly but surely, people started to view it as the masterpiece that it is.
If you're the devil, why not make the stripes disappear?
That's much too vulgar display of power, Karis.
Where's Reagan?
In here with us.
The Exorcist was nominated for 10 Oscars and was the first horror film to receive a nom for Best Picture. Essays were written about its religious themes and its place in movie history. Like a demon, characters, scenes, and quotes possessed the public consciousness and have never left. It established horror as a legitimate genre that could contain ambitious themes and remarkable filmmaking along with the typical frights. Basically, the genre wouldn't be what it is today without The Exorcist.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
You'd like that?
Intensely.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Psycho. There's nothing about Psycho that doesn't work, and it's so ingrained in pop culture that everyone knows basically everything about it, even if they've never seen it. The characters are timeless, particularly Norman Bates.
She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
The twists are so well known, but still manage to shock all the same. The shower scene and Bernard Herrmann's score. Need we say more? It also helped shift the very fabric of film by setting the foundation for the slasher genre and raising the bar in terms of on-screen violence. Entire books could be written about the craft behind Psycho and the impact it had not only on the movie industry, but on the very practice of filmmaking.
I hope they are watching. They'll see. They'll see and they'll know, and they'll say, why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.